Good afternoon and welcome to this month's show. I'm Luke McCormack. During today's show, we will discuss best practices with machine learning and artificial intelligence strategies in the federal government. With me on today's show are Chris Brazier, Division Chief at Defense Threat Reduction Agency, Brian Drake, Director of Artificial Intelligence, Science and Technology Directorate, Defense Intelligence Agency, Carly Jackson, Chief Technology Officer, Director of Science and Technology, Naval Information Warfare Systems Command, Melissa Sutherland, Vice President of the Defense Military Intelligence Division at Booz Allen Hamilton, Nicholas Spees, Chief Federal Technologist at Snowflake, and Chad Cisco, General Manager, Government Business Unit, DataRobot. Well, this is a big subject, an important subject, and a very fast-moving subject. And there's everything from we've got to cleanse the data, set the table, make sure we're ready for all this technology to ingest all this capability and start to use it, to very interesting ways I've noticed that things are being procured through challenges and seed money, et cetera. Lots of different aspects to this very fast-moving technology. Let's start with you, Chris, over at DTRA, as they like to call it, DITRA. What's going on over there regarding artificial intelligence and machine learning these days?
Hey, good afternoon, Luke. Thanks for having me. So from our perspective, and our efforts have really been focused on building our capabilities that improve end users' ability to identify, track, disable disruptive people, processes, and technologies. So our progress in ML AI is based upon a holistic vision of integrating our people, our problem domains, and those problem domains are counter threat networks, counter weapons of mass destruction, great power, competition, national security, and then of course our hardware, software technologies collectively. And finally, it's managing the machine learning model lifecycle. So if I break that apart a little bit from the people perspective, right? Our capabilities are developed by our multidisciplinary data science team that we've been redesigning for about 4 years. And over that time, what we've learned is that an ideal team needs to contain members with background in software engineering, information technology, statistics, and machine learning engineering. And it's also really important that the team has access to or contains subject matter experts with our mission-related experience or problem set experience that we're looking at. In the problem domain category, right, we're looking at the problem, primary problem across our mission space is that there's more data, text-based data, than humans can find, retrieve, or assess to meet demands of the mission requirements. So our goal is really to find ways to assist users in locating the relevant data to apply to the mission set. We've needed to find ways to automate manual and repetitive workflows, to access the information that answers the mission questions, threat discovery, and target identification. In the technology bucket, as we look at our knowledge of how to apply ML AI, it's really grown, and we quickly realized that our data science team needed a hardware, for example, GPUs, not CPUs, and software environments that will let them scale their solutions across our larger mission space. This complete data science environment is located on our development network enclaves and that reside across different classification levels. But the core data science environment infrastructure is key in letting the team accomplish a couple of things. One, it ensures both quick development of machine learning and AI capabilities while also addressing the strict security needs of our organization. And then we also are exploring and iterate on models using mission data to deliver our capabilities, execute true testing and experimentation to successfully produce machine learning models. The data science environment resides right on top of our big data technology stack, which allows us to produce tens of thousands of unique documents a day, running them through several machine learning models and then making them discoverable. And then the machine learning subdomain selected to address our problem domain is in the field of natural language processing. So there's challenges with natural language processing, especially involve really speech recognition, natural language understanding, and natural language generation.
Lot of capability, a lot of stuff going on, a lot of horsepower that's available now, and a lot of data that needs to be processed.
Yeah.
Thanks for that top line. Brian, how about over at DIA? I know there's a lot of activity going on over there and in your world. Give us a top line.
So we've had AI projects running in the agency for several years. Right now we have a reservoir of about 69 separate projects that are running at different levels of sophistication. We have challenges in managing those and keeping track of what they're doing. So we have crafted a defense intelligence strategy for artificial intelligence, which looks 5 to 10 years out. And we're trying to define what that future environment looks like for us uniquely as the premier defense intelligence provider for the US government. So some of the things that we have discovered going through that process is that we estimate that by 2025, we'll be encountering 175 zettabytes of data in the public sphere. That doesn't count the classified networks. This is just in the public sphere.
Wow.
So a zettabyte.
You got to tell the audience what zettabyte is, right? I'm not sure everyone's got that one.
Yeah, no, many people don't. So a zettabyte is 36,000 years of high definition video. Just to give you an idea of the general size.
There you go.
So if we were to commit
Netflix movies,
it's a lot to watch. So if we were to commit the entire human capital of the United States to go through a zettabyte, we'd never get there. So we estimate that into that future environment, we're going to need automated capabilities in order to process that amount of data, just to discern whether or not it has value for the intelligence enterprise. And because of that, that means that we're going to have to be looking at our activities in a different way. We have traditionally been doing our business processes on high-side networks and providing highly classified documents to policymakers from Congress, the White House, the Pentagon, warfighters out forward. We will still have that mission, and there will always be secrets in the world. But what it appears, at least for us in the future, is that a lot of that work will be done on low-side networks, not so much on high-side networks. So our business processes are going to have to shift toward more secure, unclassified processing and extracting the key insights we really care about up into the high-side networks. So those are some of the things that we're focusing in on.
Interesting to have that hybrid of high side, low side, and sort of merge that together to process some of these unique challenges that you all certainly have over there. Carly, how about at NAV War, as they like to call it? What's going on over there in regards to the use of AI and ML these days?
So at the Naval Information Warfare Centers, which are really our engineering centers that work all the way from our basic and applied research to fielded systems, our mission is really two-part. We're focused on developing systems that either resolve or create uncertainty with data, with information across multiple domains. Sometimes we talk about this and that our domain space is from seabed to space. So very broad applicability and very focused on the information domain. We just took a 10-year look at our investments in machine learning and AI, and our approach has really been multi-pronged. We have been focused on building the machine learning and AI workforce deliberately for at least 10 years, and we're even looking back into some very early publications from our most basic and applied scientists even before that. But for about 10 years now, we've been investing in almost hundreds of different projects, making some key hires in areas that were just discussed, and then also even more recently having the credentials and the experience to be able to apply some of that learning to real world problem sets. And that's really where the Warfare Centers excel. In that we have expertise that spans, again, from basic science and engineering all the way to supportive fielded systems. Another big part of our investment was not just on the expertise side, but also providing the infrastructure that could help the scientists mature their expertise and their products in this way. Of course, this includes access to high performance compute platforms, training data sets, and others, and able to allow them to advance their machine learning algorithms.
Really seems like a lot of this, sort of new emerging horsepower that's readily available, along with this, again, troves of data, and have really allowed these data scientists to come up with some super creative solutions that solve some very important missions, including yours. Melissa, how about over at Booz Allen Hamilton? I know you all are right smack in the middle of helping these agencies out. What are you seeing across the top line there as far as activity in the AI ML space?
Yeah, thanks, Luke. You know, as a company early on, we recognized that this is an area of focus for our business. And in particular, it's just an enabler. It was exciting to hear Chris, Brian, and Carly talk about their challenges, because that's really, you know, at the heart of what we've been focused on in Booz Allen. And it's exciting, you know, even last week, Bloomberg came out and announced, you know, Booz Allen is one of the top defense sector AI ML contractors. And this was, you know, really a lead that was cemented by our win in the Joint Artificial Intelligence Center. But we started investing a couple of years ago, and I want to highlight a couple key areas that we focused on. One, Brian alluded to this, is the ability to scale and reuse algorithms and ML and AI capabilities, both internal to Booz Allen as a company, but also for our clients, because there are a lot of pilot efforts out there that have a lot of potential, but how do you capitalize on those, take advantage of the investment, and import those capabilities to solve other client challenges, rather than reinventing the wheel every time, you know, we solve a challenge or start a new workload. So we created a AI ML platform called Modzy, and this is Booz Allen's enterprise AI platform and really our model marketplace. This way we can deploy, run, and manage an unlimited number of our AI models in a private, secure platform. But we also did this in partnership with companies like Hypergiant, NVIDIA, Crowd AI, other niche AI ML providers that want to make those models available, both to the whole of government and commercial. So we've had a lot of success there, where we can quickly access and train models. And this is a platform that we now have licensed model out there, so that our clients can capitalize on the investments we've made in these models, but also host their own. Think about it as a library, an open marketplace that agencies can store their models. Another key area to recognize, and I think Chris really hit on this as he was describing what they're doing in DITRA, is capitalizing on modern software best practices, and recognizing that while a lot of clients want to realize the potential of ML and AI, you have to have the ability to go from pilot to scale these capabilities. And that's really taking best practices in agile modern software development to automate deployment and provisioning of that software, but also the data. So how do we use what we call ML ops or data ops to also introduce AI and ML to automate the infrastructure, so that we can quickly move data at scale? I mean, we're talking, you know, mass amounts of data, and Brian alluded to this. Most of our challenges we're solving are in the high terabytes of data, and there are still a lot of manual extract, transfer, and load processes, even for those that are using small scale AI and ML applications. How do we automate that so we can help government scale it and do more with it?
Right, and not spend all your calories on just getting to the point where you can actually start to, you know, use the models. I love the idea of sort of a GitHub, if you will, of AI models. That's pretty interesting. Nicholas, how about over at Snowflake? Why don't you just remind everyone what Snowflake is and how you fit into this ecosystem?
Yeah, thanks a lot, Luke. Good to see you this afternoon. I'd love coming towards the end of the lineup, because there's so much great material out there that I can kind of go on here. To go back to Melissa's point, you know, Snowflake is the first data platform, and we say it's a platform built for the cloud because we've really capitalized on the technology that the cloud was built on top of: object storage, elastic compute, to offer the ability to point hundreds or thousands or tens of thousands of compute resources at a single repository of storage, a single object store. The benefit of that is to our end users, it looks like a SQL ANSI standard database. But to our folks who are more advanced users, it is an absolutely endlessly scalable platform that looks and acts like a database, but with so many more capabilities. And we've been applying a lot of those capabilities to the AI ML space. We continue to refine the platform itself. We came to the game with the ability to put very structured data, which is kind of table stakes in the database world, but to pair that data up with semi-structured data like JSON, XML, Avro, Parquet, Orc, all those great semi-structured sort of hierarchical schemas. That data can live side by side in its native format inside of Snowflake. We can do joins across that data, which in the AI and ML field is extremely useful, to build insight out of the volumes of data that Brian was talking about earlier. A lot of that data is going to come from automated platforms. And then the data scientists that are building these AI and ML models, they spend 80% of their time refining all the data that has to go into the model eventually. Snowflake has built a lot of technology into the platform to allow those transformations in data pipelines to be accomplished in Snowflake using ANSI SQL. So we simplify the process of building that data and refining it into something that can be consumed. And finally, Snowflake knows that we're not the end all be all for every technology stack out there. We've innovated a bit with some Python libraries to allow technology partners like open source Apache Spark or Databricks to be used. And of course, we integrate with great new partners like DataRobot to bring AI capabilities to Snowflake as well. So a whole ecosystem to bring the AI and ML into the fold, along with an underlying platform to build on top of.
Love the technology that you guys have introduced into this ecosystem. Always great to see, starting from a green field, taking all the sort of lessons learned and what the industry needs now, including, you know, reducing the calories of the highly trained and highly sophisticated data scientists so that they can just do the sort of God's work, if you will. Chad, how about over at DataRobot? Why don't you first tell us what DataRobot is as far as how that fits into the ecosystem, and then what are you guys up to?
Yeah, good afternoon, and thank you. Excuse me, DataRobot, founded in 2012, is an enterprise AI platform. And so our capability is on every step, once you have a data set until you create mission impact, DataRobot can automate or streamline the steps one does there. So that includes a platform for data preparation. It also includes an AI catalog and automated feature engineering. And then the next step, and what saves the most time for many of our customers, is building a number of machine learning models across all the commercially available libraries, as well as our own custom built models, and then allows the users automated capability to evaluate those models for a number of features, including trust and bias, as well as how the model will perform under different conditions. And then the last step, which Melissa brought up, which is ML operations. We also have a capability to not only monitor DataRobot models, but ingest models built in another of other platforms or capabilities. So as you put the models out there, you can see a leading edge of when is my data starting to drift, which means model performance will start to degrade. And then after that, we also just have some capability around monitoring models in production for mission impact and helping you understand what's the library of projects you have working on. So we try to automate each one of those steps, think about how our users will deploy machine learning models and make the process more streamlined. What we're working on is, our primary focus in the government has been to create mission impact. We're working really hard to find those places and tough problems that the government needs to solve and get models in production and AI deployed within months, rather than sometimes these projects take a very long time. And obviously to do that, we're trying to help our government customers leverage commercial technology, like Snowflake was mentioned earlier, and think about what's that ecosystem of technology that's already been built for the commercial sector, and often cases is in deployment with a number of commercially customers, and then bring that into the government to streamline the process, leapfrog many times development of new tools and capabilities inside the government. And then last, I'd say where we're seeing the most impact today of models in production, soldier health and readiness, for example, financial management, things like increasing the agility of finances and then reducing fraud. And then last, what we're really excited about now is some things like sensor fusion, integrating multiple different types of data, say it's video, images, text, and bringing that together to automate a lot of the tasks that analysts have to perform to bring insights to the warfighter more quickly.
I love that omni-channel sort of different types of data stitch in there. That's fascinating. Well, we're going to take a short break and we'll be right back. You're listening to the Federal Executive Forum on Federal News Network. Welcome back to the Federal Executive Forum on Federal News Network. We're talking about AI and ML, and we're just getting ready to get into specific programs. I want to throw it up to you, Carly. Give us an example, highlight a specific program, one that you can talk about, of course, that you'd like to highlight for the interest of the listening audience.
Sure, Luke, happy to do so. So a recent example in this field was how our machine learning experts applied their expertise and really employed a very strong expert network, both internally and externally to the NIWICs, to the Naval Information Warfare Centers, and they led a rapid response to the Beat COVID-19 crisis. The original proposal, in fact, came from a startup week that we run internally to identify best use of some of our internal discretionary funds, almost like an IRAD investment, where we called for ideas and solutions related to COVID-19. And the outcome of that event was that in 2 days, we had come up with 36 different ideas. And in a week's time, we had 6 detailed proposals. And ultimately 2 were selected, all in 1 week. So one of the selected efforts was brought forward by the machine learning community, and it was an application that was used to detect symptoms and to do contact tracing. And you know, aside from the great work that they all did in developing the app very quickly, there really were some key enablers that leveraged that multi-year investment in both our people and our infrastructure across the naval enterprise and our industrial base that really helped and brought speed to that effort. One was the network of experts, and for the past several years, the naval out at the Naval Information Warfare Center Pacific in San Diego, we've hosted a yearly conference that is called the Naval Applications of Machine Learning, or NAML. And this, over the years, has grown exponentially. And it's really grown into an internationally recognized technical conference that's grown beyond its original name or intent. It's beyond naval at this point, and it's beyond machine learning.
Wow.
So that's really a testament to the energy behind this and the community that's rapidly formed. And it was, in fact, some of the researchers and their professional networks that developed during these early events that allowed the team to rapidly identify team members from across the Pacific, Guam, San Diego, Northern California, and beyond. A second key enabler was a multi-year effort to develop a secure cloud infrastructure specifically for the R&D community, and that's unique. So specifically for developers as opposed to a production cloud. Also led
type environment there. Yeah, I like that.
So unclassified, but secure. And that was specifically led also out of NIWIC Pacific, but for the broader naval R&D enterprise.
Sounds like you've got a lot of activity going on over there, and I love the purpose built. I love the expansion of all this capability. And Nick, let me ask you over at Snowflake, give us an example, if you will, of a specific project that you all are working on over there. Again, one that you can talk about within the community that would be of interest.
Yeah, thanks, Luke. I mean, you know, from my various times out here talking to you folks and the great guests you have on, you know that we're relatively new in the public sector at Snowflake. So the Center for Medicaid and Medicare Services was our FedRAMP sponsor for Moderate, and we've been working with them on a variety of projects. We look forward to seeing what that blossoms into. Most of our AI and ML projects that we're working on today are joint projects with our partners over at Databricks. And of course, I'm glad Chad's here because we've actually worked together quite a bit, not directly Chad and I, but with DataRobot and Snowflake on a bunch of commercial opportunities. Outsell is probably the largest and most public facing. If you've bought a car in the last year and a half, you've definitely used Outsell's products, even if you haven't been made aware of it. But any instance where you have a ton of data coming together, that data has to live in one platform and then be served out to any number of data models and data modeling tools and any version of machine learning and artificial intelligence models. That's really where Snowflake's sweet spot is, and we look forward to our future in public sector.
Fantastic. I, again, love this teaming capability that's going on here. Chris, how about over at DITRA? I know there's a lot of activity going on there. You top-lined a whole bunch of things. Give us an example of a specific program that you'd like to highlight.
Sure, thanks, Luke. Yeah, we're a busy group. So one of the things that we've really focused on lately is text classification and document similarity. So one of our main challenges really has been getting enough labeled training data into our machine learning models. So Some of the training data that we use comes from working with our subject matter experts, and we're developing a process for labeling data as a process raw text in the format that would also work for training the machine learning models. So what we really need is about 1,000 to 1,500 docs per class with 7 total classes. So 10,000 documents or records across multiple data sources and themes. So while labeling of the training data is still a very manual process, and it depends on our subject matter experts, we've worked and seen proofs of concept and worked with different tools such as like Snowflake AI. They're really demonstrating promise by assisting in aspects of the labeling process. Our solution has helped improve our end users' ability to find relevant text documents, and by enhancing the search capabilities with text classification technique known as theme categorization. So, like most data across the DoD space, DITRA can generally be categorized into themes, which runs to the parallels of our mission sets and problem sets that we're trying to solve. These themes let the end user quickly retrieve information that's specific to their mission set across our data lake as they search it. One of the things that we've done also is delivered active learning pipeline, which is used as part of this text classification project. And what it does is it guarantees future flexibility for us, that we built a pipeline in an extensible way so that we could apply it to other models. And by using this active learning, the data science team was able to identify when a machine learning model's performance was lacking and let the data science team present the model with the data it is having a hard time making decisions about. So we're able to quickly fix that for them.
Really fine tune that so that you can get the most out of it. Interesting challenge there. Chad, how about a DataRobot? Why don't you give us an example of a specific program that you all are working on that is really enabling this ecosystem?
Yeah, thank you. One of the things where we're seeing the most impact today, and it's a side of AI that maybe doesn't get as much press as it should, but I mentioned in my opening, was financial management. One of the areas we're seeing a lot of success for a department is what I mentioned kind of as this financial agility and reclaiming funds. We've helped a department build an AI solution to identify those funding lines or projects where the money will not be fully exceeded by the end of the year, and identify that much earlier in the cycle and repurpose or reclaim those funds to other projects which can add value for the organization. This is another case where, in this case, we partnered with Palantir Technologies. And so Palantir was able to build the aggregated database across hundreds of different inputs, put that together. DataRobot partnered with them to build AI machine learning models to use machine intelligence to identify those projects which would not be fully paid, and then put that in production. And this particular agency was able to reclaim a little over 100 million earlier this year to repurpose those to new projects. And that was 10 times what they'd ever done in 8 years in the past. So we're really excited about how that funding then allows you to repurpose those projects to new things and creates this energy and momentum around AI that we can then go use to think closer to the warfighter.
Well, I tell you, that's fascinating. And there's probably not a CFO, a CIO, or a program manager that's not going to be tuned into this that wouldn't feel like, boy, let me get a hold of that AI because I want to mine my data and find those opportunities as well. Fantastic. I love that. I love that problem set. Brian, give us an example of a specific program that you'd like to talk about in regards to AI and ML.
Yeah, DIA, we have a program that we are the executive agent for that's run out of the Director of National Intelligence called the National Media Exploitation Center. And its mission is to exploit captured enemy materials. So these are things that come off of any number of things, thumb drives, cell phones, laptops, any number of things. And as you can imagine with your own personal desktop, there is so much that is on a computer now because these the hard drives that are coming onto the market are in the terabyte range. So the challenge for us has been, and the NMIC's been around for over 15 years, we have had to capture this material, exploit it, and then turn it back around very quickly in order to understand what enemy intent is or what kind of plans they might have to attack American citizens at home and abroad. So one of the successes that the NMIC was able to deliver, this is in 2011, is we were a partner on the Osama bin Laden raid. And when all that captured enemy material came back to DC, we were able to go through that material in 24 hours and turn back out a series of identified threats through analysis. And by doing that, we were able to elevate Homeland Security measures so that we made sure that folks remained safe. So we've been, if you think about that, that was 9 years ago. That was 9 years ago that we conducted the bin Laden raid. So we have considerably improved our capabilities in this domain, and now it's a very impressive installation using many inside government and outside government partners to make that work.
Fantastic problem set, and amazing that it has been 9 years. Incredible, and thank you and everyone else out there for your service. Melissa, how about over at Booz Allen? I know you all, again, one right smack in the thick of it. You gave us a great top line there. Give us an example of a specific program that you're working on.
Yeah, so we're working on a lot of different, everything from tactical, strategic, operational missions for our customer. One that I think is a common theme we're seeing and a lot of demand for, especially across the intelligence community and defense, is around open source information. And Brian alluded this a little bit in his opening, but we're seeing an increased demand to automate open source information that's out there and PAI data. Everything from scouring social media sites to real-time looking at news media and activity on sites that, when fused with intelligence information, can really inform our site picture and provide decision advantage. One of the capabilities we created is a capability called Global Foresight, where we help automate the collection of that data and the visualization of that data, but also push it up to different clients so that they can aggregate it and look at finished intelligence products that incorporate open source information. One example is around supply chain analytics. So using our capabilities, we were asked to help analysts automate what was a really long, intense manual process that took them 10 days to take 40 terabytes of data. And it's over 100,000 hard documents that they would have to comb through to really get the data they needed to then put into the tool suite that they were using in a classified environment to analyze that data. So it was all manual. We automated that process and took it down to 10 days to allow them real-time access to all of that data using the algorithms. We focused on things like performing automation of named entity extraction. That way we could easily identify names, addresses, phone numbers, vehicles, and entities of interest that could be disruptive to the supply chain, but also where there might be fake profiles hanging out there. So we had specific algorithms that were looking for those anomalies. We also wanted to highlight changes in the information environment. So part of the tool suite that this data was flowing into was on a watch floor. And those resulted in real-time efforts to stay ahead of crisis and developing efforts. So that's just one example of where ML and AI really streamlined those analytic processes and has helped a lot of our customers.
Yeah, a great example there. And as you're describing that, you can just think of the hundreds of other examples, right? Everything from finding, $100 million, mining it, to what you're describing there really is incredible, and it's impressive. And, I think we've only just begun, so to speak. Well, we're going to roll it over to a priority question. And I'm going to ask each of you the top priority that you have in the job jar as we speak. Chris, let me start with you at DITRA.
Sure, thanks, Luke. So if I only have one, and I can only pick from one, I would have to say right now it's really developing our machine learning operations pipeline over the next 12 months. And the neat thing about it is machine learning operations really kind of builds upon the success of DevOps and the natural integration between data and the probabilistic nature of machine learning models. But it does require a different type of synchronization within the MLOps pipeline. So kind of what we're looking at is pursuing 3 interconnected core concepts and how they're going to be used. So between lifecycle management, monitoring, model version control, that's a lot to cover. Lifecycle management, really looking at the continuous synchronization between its model and the data and our desired processes, just make sure it meets all the expected criteria. I think model version control is, we're monitoring that model, how it's developed, and ensuring that the model has everything that it's needed, libraries, data, et cetera. But I would also say that, machine learning operations pipeline is part of a multi-phase collection that we do. So we'll continue our proof of concept model on how we're going to kind of develop this. And what we usually do is we work with other DoD entities. We have worked with industry partners such as Booz Allen Hamilton, who's one of my vendor partners, does a great job for us. Academic partners, and then leveraging our own 5+ year DevSecOps pipeline knowledge and successes, which will help us build this machine learning ops pipeline for the future. So that's my top priority for this year.
Yeah, it's super important. You gotta be able to set the table, right, to make the rest of it happen. Chad, how about a DataRobot? What are you seeing? What are your customers asking you? What are you focusing your attention on as far as your #1 priority right now?
Yeah, thank you. One of our top priorities right now is helping our customers overcome one of their biggest barriers, frankly, in creating emission impact from AI, which is just the overall readiness and culture, one might say, of some of the organizations we work with. What some organizations we work with realize is to get to scale with AI, they have to step back and think about not just the data science teams and ability to build models, but almost the entire organization's readiness and capability across AI. So we've launched a program with one of the intelligence community organization to think through all the way from the leaders to the analysts, what is the knowledge they need with AI to identify the best places to make investments, to overcome the roadblocks to put AI in production, and then to use those as the end users. Because oftentimes you might build a great model, but it never gets deployed because the end users don't know how to think differently. And so we're pretty excited about this program where we have general education, which brings overall awareness of AI. Through that general education, we identify those capable, motivated people who'd like to get really involved. We've formed some cohorts across multiple functions, leaders, analysts, data scientists, software engineers, and they're building out specific use cases in a cohort style to put things in production and, again, create mission impact. So we're really excited about that and think that's the way many parts of the government need to think about, not just building models, but transforming the culture of how we use AI in the government.
Absolutely. The culture is a big part of this. Carly, how about at NavWar? You talked about a lot of different capabilities there, a lot of activity. What's your #1 priority these days?
So in thinking about priorities, we certainly share many of the same challenges and priorities that the other panel members had just discussed. If I were to kind of comment on one that maybe hasn't been discussed yet, it would be pushing the concept a little further into the hands of the warfighter and really prioritizing across all our domains and the disciplines that we work in, because there are just so many, but helping our scientists and engineers identify the technology that is mature enough to get minimum viable products out to the fleet, whether it's for frankly in lab experimentation or actually deployed systems. But that early feedback is critical, not only to inform the design of the algorithms that we're putting out, but also to build that trust between the operator and the machine. And so that part of human machine teaming is really a critical space that the government scientists and engineers can thrive in. We see that as a unique role, and we really push our teams, our expert teams, to deliver capabilities early and often, and to always think warfighter.
Early adoption, very important. Getting early feedback, super important. Well, we're going to take another break and we'll be back in just a moment. You're listening to the Federal Executive Forum on Federal News Network. Welcome back to the Federal Executive Forum on Federal News Network. We're talking about machine learning and AI. We were just getting into top priorities. And Melissa, let me throw it over to you. What's the #1 priority that you all are working on over there at Booz Allen?
Yeah, and Carly alluded to this in the last segment, but what we call operationalizing AI, and that's really driving user adoption. How do we get these capabilities in the hands of the warfighter, for example, or the end user, so that they're usable and they're really kind of resulting in that human machine teaming? And we focus on a few key areas that are critical to that. The first is explainability. This kind of addresses the trust factor. How do we provide the tools and algorithms to help us move away from this notion of an AI ML black box and ultimately help drive trust and therefore user adoption? This is critical to scaling enterprise capabilities and for users to gain confidence in the output of the models. Another key area to enable that is adversarial AI. How do we make sure we understand adversarial capabilities and ML techniques that they're going to attempt to fool our models? These pose a real threat to the stability and confidence levels and the outputs of the models. So we've created capabilities that help early detection of where we might have adversarial AI vulnerabilities in our algorithms, so we can identify those early and continue to evolve our cyber capabilities to thwart those threats. Something we don't talk about as much, but is really important, and our companies put a lot of focus on, is around ethical AI. We're implementing corporate guiding principles to ensure that our AI is creating beneficial, not harmful to human welfare, and does not introduce bias within the model. So that's another investment area we're really focused on that we also think is going to contribute to driving user adoption.
I'm glad you brought that up. Very important topic and very timely, right? As we start to get the wide use of this, we start to see some of these, we'll call them unintended consequences, right? That we need to be mindful of as we embark on this journey using this very powerful technology. Brian, how about you at DIA? I know there's a lot of activity going on over there. What's the top priority for you all?
So for us, everything with AI/ML begins and ends with data. So when we talk about projects that we're going to take on and take forward, the first question and the last question is data. What data do we have available? What data do we need to get? How do we need to store it? How do we need to enrich it and prepare it for whatever the mission area is? So one of the things that we are pioneering, I'll say, but we've been doing it since the end of World War II, which is creating gold copy standards for our data. So when our data comes into our enterprise, it does not change. We instead enrich that with metadata. So we ensure that we know when it was taken, who took it, the fidelity and provenance of that data, and then hash it so we know when it changes at the origination point. And by doing all that, we can then enable our data scientists to have a copy that they know is inviolate and has a pedigree behind it. And they can use that any way that they choose for their given project that they're working on. That's a marked change from where we have seen folks in sister organizations in our own, where they just go back to the well and pull that data back every time. Well, that's costly. And there are changes in that data set that probably are worth noting, especially as Melissa was indicating, that we have to think about what our adversaries are doing in this environment. It is a dynamic combat environment from our view. So we believe that our adversaries, if they're not already, they will soon move into that space and start to pollute data sets and also try to manipulate our AI algorithms so that they shape our perceptions. So we have already prepared for that future, and we are insulating ourselves from that risk.
Data, I love the concept of this gold disc of data, if you will, and certainly you hear the term data is the new oil. And you have to protect it, including the integrity of it. Very important. Interesting concept there that you're describing, and I'm glad to see that you guys are attacking it full force there. Nicholas, how about at Snowflake? A lot of different activities going on. We're talking about data, number one priority for Snowflake right now.
Yeah, thanks, Luke. I'll kind of pile on top of what Brian and Melissa were talking about. They're absolutely right. The gold standard of data, that gold disk copy that we need to have out in the world. Snowflake has made it very simple for different agencies or mission partners to share data between themselves, regardless of what cloud they're on. We're deployed in AWS, Azure, GCP today, moving into the Gov Clouds. We're on MAG today. We're moving to AWS Gov Cloud. I would say that being able to share that single source of truth, you've built your gold data standard, being able to share that gold standard out to mission partners, regardless of what cloud they're in, that's our top priority, to go to Melissa and to go to Brian and evangelize those messages and build that gold standard architecture that can enable the collaboration in the Intel community that it needs so greatly.
Yeah, very important to lock that down and ensure that there's absolute 100% integrity. All right, we're gonna wrap it up here with probably our favorite question, which is sort of paint a picture of the future. Tell us what it looks like around the corner, over the horizon. Maybe not necessarily in the petri dish, but not tomorrow, so to speak. Chad, we're going to start with you at DataRobot. What's it looking like in a couple of years in regards to where you all stand?
Again, I think to come back to financial management, if I were to say within a couple of years, where will the largest impact be in the government? I think you'll see billions of dollars saved in improving and streamlining financial management. Again, it's not something that's talked about a lot, but there's so much possibility there that could be executed today. And I see a lot of momentum behind that now. So I'd say as you streamline financial management, use AI to automate repetitive tasks, to identify fraud, and then ultimately to be able to repurpose funds, as I mentioned earlier, that unlocks a lot of funds to then repurpose elsewhere and deploy new and more mission critical AI solutions. And then, as I would say, where in the mission critical side do I see the most progress happening? I think it comes back to this sensor fusion and automating analyst capabilities. That's where I see a lot of momentum today as well. And I would say in a couple of years, a lot of the things that an analyst does today will be automated, and they will be able to step back more and think about what they're seeing and get that intelligence aggregated out to the warfighter in a much more seamless way.
It's interesting because we always used to have a concept in the CIO community, cut, keep, and reinvest. And you've just turned that to find, keep, and reinvest. And I think that's absolutely fantastic. Nicholas, how about at Snowflake? What's it look like in a couple of years? What do you guys see when you peek over the horizon?
What I keep saying over and over again, Luke, is, in my private life, I don't know how to fix everything on my car. I don't know how to, make the best financial decisions all the time. I have experts that I go to give me more information to make better decisions. That decision making is going to come from artificial intelligence, I think, in a lot of our government agencies. But government agencies are very specialized in a lot of ways that are good for the citizenry. I think what we look at in the future is a more collaborative government where agencies are collaborating, contributing information to each other to allow them to accomplish their missions in very unique ways. And I'm looking forward to that because that's what we do very well, and it's a great place for us to be in. So I look forward to that.
Data is the new oil, and we certainly have to collaborate to make it all work and really leverage and maximize the use of it. Melissa, how about at Booz Allen? You guys got an incredible global portfolio over there of activity going on. What does it look like in sort of your sector, if you will, over the next couple of years? What are you all anticipating?
Thanks, Luke. I think we really want to see things evolve to achieve real human-machine teaming. We have a concept we've been applying called Analyst 2.0. How do we achieve true partnerships through the efficient, effective integration of humans with these ML and AI capabilities to really, truly automate tradecraft? And Chad alluded to this, right? It's the goal is to assist humans in their daily activities, not replace. And I think that's a common misnomer that a lot of people think these technologies are going to come in and replace their job when really it's just trying to automate and make their jobs more efficient through that time savings. And we're going to build on this next generation workforce. I think you're going to see more of the workforce in the next few years come in with hybrid skill sets that have a deep understanding of the full data lifecycle and how they capitalize on the advances in these capabilities. And it was Chris alluded to this in terms of how DITRA is tackling tradecraft automation by bringing the business and mission process analysts together with your software developer and your data scientist. I think that's going to help us achieve this vision of making sure that our AI systems are trustworthy and able to scale to support our enterprise operations at the speed of mission.
Right. We're going to put some very powerful capabilities in the hands of these data science, and then as Carly talked before about these operators right on the front line there, and want to make sure that we're doing all the right things to be using those properly, et cetera. Carly, what does it look like as you all are cooking it up over there in the science and technology division? What does it look like in a couple of years for you all?
Yeah, thanks, Luke. So at NIWC Pacific, we have a long history of storytelling through video. And we've done that both for internal stakeholders and external programs over the years. And a few years ago, we made a concerted effort to develop a vision for the future, a 20-year vision. And it's offered through what we call a command technical vision, or a C4ISR technical vision, which is about a 6-minute short film that features Kennedy, which is our version of Alexa, right? An AI-enabled command center of the future. And this is our 20-year vision. And we use it internally to galvanize the workforce across many domains, as we discussed, in many diverse expertise areas. Internally, since then, we've developed a series of prototype demonstrations that optimize the decision-making for this command center that uses data-centric approaches, natural language processors, machine-assisted decision-making, and user-centered design approaches to rapidly deploy the advanced interfaces that are really required to harness all this data. We call this making Kennedy real. And it's turned out to be a real galvanizing force, as I said, internally, but also externally. Last year, we also brought it to our industry partners as well, and are looking to establish some with Kratos, recognizing that not all tech that we are interested in is developed by the government. And so we're certainly open. We've opened our doors and are really aggressively partnering with industry and academia and our joint partners in this effort.
And that's really neat. You mentioned CRADA, and I also read where you all had done some challenge prizes too, as well, in some of the AI stuff. And it's really, again, back to some of the innovative ways that you all are sussing out some of this technology and bringing it in and experimenting with it. I think it's fantastic. So
using every tool in our toolbox, that's for sure.
Absolutely, absolutely, fantastic. Brian, how about over at DIA? What does the future look like as you all sort of look around the corner? There's a lot of things cooking over there. What can we expect in a couple of years?
So what's interesting about my business is that we follow the customer and where the customer goes. And so some of the things that we pay attention to are changes in how information is consumed generationally. So as our policymaker community is getting younger, the way they consume information is changing. So the Obama administration was the most famous example of this, but he wanted to see things in a more electronic format. So the Director of National Intelligence delivered an iPad so that he could consume intelligence. That now opened up a whole range of things that we can do now to present information to our senior executives in the government. Videos, interactives, they can interact with themselves and ask questions directly to the analysts through platforms just like that. So we expect that in the future, we're going to be producing more products that are less paper driven and more electronically driven. We expect that those products will have to have a very robust data back end to them, because we think that our future customer set is going to be incredibly inquisitive and want to see more information about what it is they are consuming. And then they're going to press us and test us more on why we think certain things, and they're going to want to see the homework. So that's the vision that I think we are building toward. And in addition to being able to serve our warfighters out forward as well, edge computing platforms, folks have already kind of talked about, that is definitely a future that we see now. We see folks deploying, handheld drones in the Strategic Capabilities Office, for an example. So those are platforms we're going to have to feed, and those are platforms that are going to create intelligence that we're going to have to consume. And so those are the things we're drilling toward.
Sure, an interesting concept there about, this, all of a sudden you're putting an electronic device in the decision maker's hands, so to speak. Talk about real-time data, right? That's fascinating, and I'm glad to see that is in the works there. Chris, how about over at DITRA? What does it look like as you look over the horizon? A lot of activity going on there as well. Paint a picture.
Yeah, I mean, this picture is going to be kind of interesting. So as Melissa and Brian kind of pointed out to, right, our whole thing is focusing on our customer base, which is combatant commands. But I think over the next 12, 18 months, really what we're looking at is from a data science standpoint, bringing in the right folks into our fold from a data science standpoint, and looking at it from not only just a technologist and subject matter experts, but also bringing in the delta into the group, which could be an economist, financial analyst, somewhere in that aspect, because what you're looking for is the ideas to actually help drive the innovation across our platforms and towards our customers. That's one of the things that we're looking at. And I think the other part is we'll continue to expand our partnerships across academia, across DoD, and hopefully try to help solidify the machine learning AI DevSecOps arena into some sort of standardization. I think there's a lot of flux right now, especially when it comes to ML ops and AI, and there's not a real standard across the board, even across DoD right now. So hopefully we'll try to help drive that and get some more standardization across the board, so we all kind of agree on what really is data science or ML ops.
Yeah, you know, the fact of the matter is that's, I don't want to call it the Wild West because that sounds willy-nilly, but, you know, look, you all are creating, you're inventing as you go here, right? And you're creating new techniques, if you will, to use this capability, use it safely, use it properly, and
Yeah.
use it effectively and efficiently.
We are, and I think the other part of that too is ensuring that you have some standards of like a measurement, like have a goal of what you're trying to do, especially when you're piloting something. At least say, I'm trying to drive towards X, and even if you fail, you know that, hey, we can actually get rid of that theory, and now we need to move on to the next thing. So a measurement of success is key across the board, and having some sort of risk tolerance and pushing that out to the teams by saying, we will accept risk tolerance without any kind of blowback or punishment, if you will.
Absolutely. And we always like to say these days, we're not failing early, we're learning early.
Absolutely.
We could talk all day about this, and I really want to thank all the guests. I know all of you are busy for taking the time out of your busy schedules to join us for this program. I'd like to thank the sponsors here for supporting us on this show. I'd like to thank the good people here at Federal News Network that make this program so successful and enjoyable. And most of all, I'd like to thank you, the listening audience out there that tune in every month. You've been listening to the Federal Executive Forum, part of Federal News Network.